Hello and welcome to another episode of Minds Against Dogma. I promised you during our pilot episode that it's not all going to be about science and techie stuff. So today I'm here with Bernard Galane, who is an amazing artist and multi-talented artist.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
today we will be speaking about art. And we will be speaking about art in the context also of, first of all, artists who went against the dogma of their time with their art, your art, which I think it's amazing. I think you can get a glimpse right behind me of how amazing your art is. And also what it's like to be an artist nowadays with everything that's happening with AI. But first, I want to talk a little bit about you. So I met Bernard on my favorite rooftop in Hollywood. It was one of those eclectic nights where we met a couple of an eclectic group of people. And I know that you are a musician as well as a painter, and you also do modeling, and you played in movies. And you did theater as well, if I'm not mistaken,
A little bit. Yeah.
So one of the first things that I talked with Bernard about was how it's like to be in LA and how is the art life nowadays. But first I want to go a little bit and talk a little bit about your upbringing, because I think it's very interesting. So you were born in Austria, in Tulln an der Donau, which is a little town just outside Vienna,
Yes.
right?
Like 20 minutes.
20 minutes. And from a young age, you were interested in art.
That's right, yeah.
Tell me a little bit more of how your journey started.
Well, actually, my brother and me, we were born into music. Music was first. And my parents were very supportive. There was this thing called, in Austria, it's a very, very good educational system in Austria. And there's this thing called early musical education. So you do that at age like 3 or 4 when you're super young. And it's basically a bunch of kids, and they let you explore instruments. At that age, you're not like sitting down and playing an instrument like 8 hours a day. So you just get to know the piano, then you get to know the xylophone. You try drum, basic like notation, and it's called early musical education. And my parents put me and my brother into that program. And I remember I loved it even back then when I was only like 3 or 4 years old, like 4 years, I think it was. And we were just playing around. And so music was first, But I always liked to draw as well. And I think I told you my great-grandfather was an artist, and my grandmother on my mom's side, this is all my mom's side. It's a very artistic family, There's like a lot of drawing, and so it's actually more in the family than music. But my first love was definitely music.
And you were studying drums at some point. You got into...
Actually, yeah. My brother started on the drums. He must have been 5 or 6, and I actually started on the piano, classical, and then some modern piano. But I didn't like it so much. It was always like looking to my brother practicing the drum kit, and I was very drawn to the drums. And then my brother had a great teacher, and he started this group it was called the Kids on the Drums and the Session Brothers. And it was basically some talented kid drummers playing with a grown-up professional rhythm section. It was like Latin pop music. And that band really started to take off in Austria. So I wanted to be in that band as well. And I slowly switched over to the drums. Once I started playing in this band, I became obsessed with the drums, it was like an obsession. So I liked it so much more than piano. I put the piano aside, and I just wanted to play drums.
Now, what is interesting is also when you think in terms of European culture, because for us, Vienna is the cradle of classical and symphonic music, right? So how was it like to be, because I know you were a prodigy, child in terms of drums, and you won a couple of competitions doing that
During my
very
teens,
early,
yeah, there were some solo
your teens.
competitions.
So how was that cultural, I don't want to say clash, but how was that, how was studying music and being a drummer at a young age in a city that has so much,
That's a
conservative, if I can say,
that's a great
like
question.
classical.
That's a
Yeah.
great question, and the interesting thing is when we actually in our drum lessons we started like, I'm going to show this really quick with this paintbrush here. We all started with classical grip on the snare. So we still did a lot of classical snare drumming and reading. We were not playing the drum kit right away. We started with classical music and a lot of reading and dynamic studies, So I have a classical background too on the snare drum. That's how we started. In America, people start with the drum kit, with the full drum kit right away. But in Vienna, it's still very conservative. Back then, not so much anymore. But back then, it was like we still started like the real classical guys, and then slowly went into more modern rock and pop and fusion music, jazz music.
So when you moved to LA, did you move thinking of pursuing a musical career at first?
Absolutely, it was the only reason. Like as I said, I was touring with this band. We were all touring with this band. Like when we were like 10-year-old kids. We were like playing on television. We had a song in the charts. We were opening. You remember Brian Adams, the pop star from Canada?
Yeah.
And Extreme, Chesney Hawks, all these people. We were opening for these. We were opening shows, opening acts. Back in the day, you had like the main act. You still have that sometimes, right? And then we were opening stadium shows when we were kids. So there was so much playing, and we had songs on the radio. And I remember getting royalty checks when it was like 12. So it's like, this is what I want to do forever. This is me. I love it so much, and I'm going to give everything I have to make this happen. So I practiced like a madman. I'm talking 8, 9, 10 hours per day sometimes.
As a teenager.
That's
respect.
I was extremely dedicated because I believe like if you set your mind to something, you what else would you do? That was always my question. What else would I do? So I would give it all I have, right? All I got. And I remember like I was also starting to work around Vienna as a session drummer in my teens when I was like 15, 16, 17 years old. I was a very busy working musician in and around Vienna. I played all the time. I recorded all the time. I started teaching a little bit. And I was just a professional musician at a very young age. And then, of course, I played with everybody in my country. So I always looked to my heroes into the United. Back then, there was a real music scene in America. Obviously, it changed like drastically. It's a completely different world now with downloading and streaming. We get to that later, but the goal was always America back then. And all my heroes came here to New York and to LA. And after I went to the conservatory in Vienna as well, where I did my master's degree. And I remember like 2 weeks after my...
In a record time, as far as I'm remembering.
Yeah, very, 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 very... I did it in 3 years, yeah. And right after that, I remember like 2 weeks after graduating, I flew to America. And it's like, okay, that's it. I'm like, I'm going to stay and like do it,
So now we're going to get to what happened in terms of like the global way of thinking in terms of music and what happened after you moved to LA. But first I want to give like a sort of a disclaimer, quote unquote. We always laugh when we're out in LA that because we're Europeans, we actually can say that we don't like stuff. So we're certain stuff. Yeah, we're still big advocates of taste. So I'm not going to say the last two people in LA, but I mean we can say if we don't like a certain type of music, a certain type of venue, and all that, because it's has become this culture that you have to like everything,
Yeah.
And I want to get to that
There's
point.
a word for it, but I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying
You gotta be careful.
I'm trying to avoid it as well. So without again, like judgmental as we Europeans sometimes are, but that doesn't mean anything in terms. It's not a personal affront. You can like a person without necessarily liking their art. You can like their art without necessarily liking all what they're doing. You can have a favorite filmmaker that you can criticize on the latest, thing that you don't like. But this is also because the line now in between consumers and critics and producers and artists is not a line anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about how you've seen that, because you told me you got to LA exactly when you were opening for these big bands and all your heroes were in LA.
Most, yeah.
And that was 25 years ago, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. How, what happened in the last 25 years from your perspective?
That's such a great question, and I'm trying to keep it short because it's a completely different place now. Like, like I would say LA used to be a music studio. There was a lot of studios here and recording music and music production and all that, like soundtrack work and like movies, obviously, and live clubs. It changed from a movie and music city into a reality television city. It's really what it became, and it's very sad, and there's only one reason for it. It's the internet. Social media and downloading and streaming and that constant devaluation of popular music and popular movies turning into a popularity contest. And the only true winners are the platforms. And with the platforms, I mean the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the TikToks of the world. They are the winners in this game, They basically started a popularity contest for 2 billion people.
Right.
It's the biggest money machine in the world. It's the biggest advertisement machine in the world. And it will never go away. So we all have to live with it, and we all have to find new ways and be smart about it. But it will never be 1985 again, So there was a very rational pyramid in the arts and in music. You were good, and then you slowly started to playing with people, and then you would get a better gig. And I just remember like playing out live back in the day. You would never know who would walk in and look for young musicians for the next tour. Don't forget, there are no more people like, for example, like Sting. There are no more artists like that around who meet these world-class players and then go on tour for like 9 months a year. And then they make another album, and then they go on tour again. And that's how it used to be. Album tour. But there are no more albums now, no more real albums. It's all streaming and algorithms and like programmed, like go out these days and listen to popular music. It's crazy. Most of it sounds like a 4-year-old kid on a laptop, It's just a totally different scene now. And I think in a way it's sad because we lost so much not only complex and jazz and fusion oriented music, but also like good rock music that came straight from the heart.
No pun intended, right? Straight from the heart.
I think rock is the new jazz in a way.
Now, in a way, yeah.
It's an underground now, real rock music that I like raw rock music, even if it's not like complex or like virtuoso players or whatever. But if it comes straight from the heart, it's good music for me,
As a consumer, as a pure consumer, one of the things that when I first got to LA, one of the things that I was expecting, which is kind of funny because of what you were talking about, I still had the idea of LA probably from the times that you were talking about. I was expecting in terms of rock, for example, to find a great rock scene. And when I say rock, I was thinking rock and roll as much as I was thinking alternative rock. So like all the full spectrum, the full spectrum of rock. and I couldn't.
You go into a club now, you can almost not recognize the artist anymore. Most of it really sounds like noise. It's like distorted noise with filters and like distortion. It's one tempo the whole night long. And that's music now. And then the next track, and then the next track, and then the next track. So it's strange. It's really strange. There are some good, don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously, there will always be amazingly talented people, but they're just floating around somewhere on YouTube or somewhere on Spotify. And how would they ever monetize it the way like how it used to be? You know, it's just so much more difficult now.
Yeah, and one of the things that I saw, again, without giving any names, although I feel like I should make that band more popular, but one of the bands that I saw when I got here, that I was expecting, like, if you hear their music, I was expecting them to be as big as like Muse meets U2 kind of a thing. And I realized by spending a lot of time with both artists and people, like, you know, in the managerial part, I realized, I mean, they were telling me the same thing, that it's not even about the music anymore, because the music was perfect. They were great live, but they had almost no social media presence. Yeah. So people who were way better at promoting themselves with a product that was, by my taste, judging by my taste, people inferior, would be doing so much better than the people who were having the talent.
You bring up such a great point. Doing better in what terms? You know, when you dig a little deeper, like, you know, like, do you remember MySpace?
Vaguely.
MySpace was like the first. It's a long time. I was on there like everyone else. I was super young. I was a kid, basically. You know, like, and I remember there was one specific like video I uploaded, and I had a lot of genuine friends on there because it was on there really early. So I connected with tons of musicians. And this video got like thousands of views overnight. And the next morning, I said to myself, "What did just happen? Okay, it's great. These people like watch me play, but like, what are they gonna like? They're not ordering like my CDs now. They're not like purchasing like my records now because of that. They just watch a video, and then if they like it, maybe they watch another one, and then they watch another one, and while they watch another one, they see another 10 from 10 different people, and they just watch all these videos." And even back then, in my childish naivety, I asked myself, who is the real winner in this game? Like, what does that help me now? You know what I mean?
The platform.
The platform. It always comes back to the platform. So I came up with the whole approach of marketing, like my own instrument line, symbols, educational books, DVDs. I became an entrepreneur because I had to. You know, you cannot pursue this business like it's the old days anymore. It's impossible. You can't do that. So that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, by doing everything on my own. You know, my own brand, my own line, my own instrument line, my everything, like symbols, sticks, books, shirts, you name it, everything.
Now, I want to jump a little bit too, because I know you're teaching drums at the Music Institute in LA. I want to ask you a little bit, how do you see, and I know this sounds like such a generic question, but how do you see the students, like the new generation? How is the teaching, the whole teaching? Did it change with everything that's going on? Like, how is that?
I think
let's get academic for a moment.
No, great question. I think it changed like everything else, because think about the information people have now, like on your phone. Like, you can watch anything.
You can,
and there's so much
learn drums on your phone.
Yeah, but there's so much bad information, and then there's good information too. So many people are confused too because it's just too much. And I think that many young musicians that like want to be in music now, want to do this full time, they have a different approach. It's not like people like me who just play one instrument 10 hours a day and study it like crazy, because let's face it, 99% of what I can do in my instrument, I will never be able. It's purely academic. Right. It's a little bit like your job, almost like it's art and science meets like, it's like who listens to that type of music anymore? Like this complex stuff, right? But I love it so much, and like I keep studying the instrument, I keep exploring it I've been doing it all my life. But many young people who get into it now, they do more on the production side as well. That they write songs, they already have like they might be targeting like commercial music, movie soundtracks. So they have a different approach. It's not so like crazy into one thing.
Obsessive.
Yeah. Like I'm only doing this now, right? It's much more well-rounded. Of course, they're not going to be like many of them are not going to be like crazy good instrumentalists, but they don't even want that, because they're like, why would I even put myself through this, and do this for so many hours every day, and where are you even going to play with that type of music, and who's going to listen to it? But I still do a lot of clinics, and people ask me all kinds of interesting questions. And sometimes I see some very dedicated young people. And then I'm glad I studied the instrument to that level because I can answer all their questions. But it's a different approach now. Yeah. Yeah. It's more all round, I would say.
Now, I want to jump a little bit to, let's say, the fine arts aspect.
Yes. Yes.
Because I know when we started talking, we talked about your art, and I know you liked our Da Vinci podcast. And I want you to tell me a little bit, like, if you think about moments, let's do a historical approach first. Think about moments in history of, again, when we talk about paintings and fine arts, when there was such a thing as the mainstream, and then people went against the dogmatic view. What names come to mind when you think about?
What do you mean, like in terms of like rule breakers, or like?
Yeah, like Minds Against Dogma.
One guy, like if you go back in history, one guy that comes to mind is like one guy from my hometown, Schiele. Like look at that guy. Like it's like some people are like, oh, it's so dark, and it's like, do you know Schiele? Yeah, and it is kind of dark. But come on, whoever like did anything like that before, like it's completely unique. It's almost like that guy is wearing different glasses. He's seeing the whole world through a different filter. And so it was like Van Gogh is another guy like that, right? I have huge respect for these guys who like. There's this saying, genius is the fire that lights itself. Like, where does it come from? That's the greatest like quest, I think, in art and in science too. When you just like, where does it come from? Where did that come from, and how did you ever come up with that? That's magic to me. And there's a whole bunch of guys, and it's really interesting. Like if you like know that famous story about that one Leonardo da Vinci painting where his teacher, he was very young, I think he was only 17 or 18, and his teacher had to leave the workshop for whatever reason for 3 weeks. And he said, Leonardo, can you finish two of these little figures here in the corner? And rumor has it that when the teacher came back and he saw the finished faces that the young Leonardo da Vinci did, he never ever wanted to paint again. That's how. And I saw that painting. It's in Florence, in the Uffizi. You probably know it's very famous, like all Leonardo paintings. You see these two little angels. There are these two little angels in the left bottom corner of the painting, and they just glow compared to the rest of the painting. The rest of the painting is good. It's very good. All the Italian masters, I mean, come on, they were all great, right? But these two faces, there's like something different. It's like I think Leonardo painted the soul of the people. He really painted the soul. That's that magic. When I saw the original Da Vinci paintings in Paris, I got goosebumps. I'm like, I'm seeing his soul. I'm seeing his spirit inside that canvas. And it doesn't look painted to me. It looks like somebody did. It's like
summoned, conjured.
It's like the color just went. So all these masters have their thing that touches you, and they're all rule breakers in their own way. I'm aspiring to, hopefully, to paint character and soul too, and spirit of objects, of figures. I love figures. I love painting figures. It's my favorite thing. And it's a lifelong journey. It's very difficult to paint figures. Believe me, it's much easier to paint landscapes.
Tell me a little bit about that, because we talked about that. So let's share a little bit of.
And I would like to share too, and thanks for bringing the arts up. Like my journey into fine art. As I said, it's in my family, and I always loved art. And I was drawing a lot as a kid, but I never wanted like to really like explore it. But music was always music. And then if you do something so excessive at a very young age, there was kind of a burnout in my late 20s. It was it was a dark period. It was very dark. I was kind of, music was a routine, and like the great music died off anyway. And like I'm like, oh, where am I going to play the stuff music that I really love? And like it's all these small clubs all the time. And so it was like a little bit of a crisis, and I needed to find myself from a new angle as a musician. And I used this time, in a way it was a dark time, but in a way it was a beautiful time too. I used this time to really like, all of a sudden, like, it went like, and I started to obsess over this, over fine art. And I remember I got all these books, and I looked at thousands of paintings that already I liked as a kid, that fascinated me as a kid. And I looked at all these paintings again, and I rediscovered Dali in a new way. And I rediscovered young Picasso. I love young Picasso. What a brilliant guy this man was, it's just incredible. The early Picasso work. The later work, he kind of, like he monetized it, obviously, the stuff he's really famous for. But did you see his early work?
I did. There's a museum
in Barcelona.
Barcelona, 2 hours away from Barcelona, actually.
Where they have all his early work.
Exactly.
Have you been there?
Yeah, I've been there.
Me too.
The one on top of it's a church, like a monastery.
You have to go up in the first floor.
Yeah.
I've been there. Yeah.
That's the one where I.
Yeah. And the early work like touched me like so much at that time. And another guy was Ernst Fuchs, Austrian surrealist. He was close friends with Dali. And he became a major influence as well. And during this dark period in my late 20s, I really like got into it, like exploring, learning about layering, glazing. I was painting a lot of acrylics back there. And I got more and more into it, and I started to like it, and people started to like it. And it was this process. It was this new journey. And I woke up in the morning and was excited. I was excited to do it. And then, I switched to oil. Only painting oil now. I will never ever touch another medium for the rest of my painting career. Oil is my medium. And sometimes we don't understand when we go through a dark time that it's for our benefit. Looking back now, without this down period, I would not have gone into art so deep, and I'm so grateful for it now because I love it so much, and it became a part of my life. It became such an important part of my life, and I'm learning so much, and I'm there's constantly new work in my head that I want to do. It never ever ends.
I want to say that for me, as again, I call myself a consumer when it comes to most art except the writing art. I'm, in terms of what Umberto Eco called the first level of openness when he was talking about aesthetics, which is pretty much the last level of openness as well. That is just a pretentious way to say when I look at art, I either like it and I see something in it, or I don't like it. In the middle, there's that thing that I can appreciate the technical and the quality of the painting, but it's not something that I would take home with me. Let's say.
Yeah.
So I'm that basic when it comes to art. But when I was looking at your paintings, there's always there's so many layers. And again, I can see, for example, some things that are inspired by Da Vinci. You have your Da Vinci's angels, and some things that are inspired by Dali, and so I can see the influences. But I always look at it. I mean, some of them are so strikingly different than everything else. And I'm thinking now about the clown, or one painting that I see now in front of me. Yeah. So one of the things that I like about your painting is that it has so many layers of meaning, and there's always a story with them, at least for me. And the other thing is that I like about the artist is that you never take offense in no matter what I say in terms of your painting, which is incredible.
Why would I? I
that's
appreciate it.
When we talk back with about people in LA, the other thing about people in LA is like the idea of taking it personally, when you talk about what art represents to someone else, maybe with some of your paintings, and we were talking about some of them, you had a vision. That is not what I see when I look at it.
Yeah.
I can see something entirely different.
You know what my vision is? My vision is that you have your vision when you look at one of my paintings.
That's ideal for me.
I want you to see your story. And that's all that counts for me.
And that's something that I really, really appreciate, because again, with absolutely no, except going to museums, with absolutely no training and no pretense that I'm a critic of art, I can look at a painting of yours and say, okay, here I like this to this, and be very basic about like the combination of colors or something like that.
Sinziana, thank you so much for saying this. You don't even know what this means what you just said. Because the struggle in music these days, I don't want to sound harsh, but our society is dumbing down, especially young people, because of TikTok and all that. Right? I mean, it's just a fact. It's the truth. That, like, when you see something in a beautiful painting, that's the greatest thing for the artist, because a truly great composition in music, I think, is much more misunderstood than a truly interesting and sharp and detailed painting. Do you know what I mean?
I look at them both the same, because it's like through what they represent to me.
It just was so beautiful you said, because you said you're not an art critic, which is awesome, whatever. I don't care. I want you to like hopefully see something beautiful and be touched by it.
Which comes back to the taste and the preservation of taste, because that's the thing.
Yes, you're right. The preservation of taste.
Of personal taste.
And I believe that, what I'm trying to say is, like, I know some of the greatest musicians in the world. And sometimes what they play, like a great piano solo or like a really great drum solo, sounds like noise for most people. And it's okay too, because people, why would they understand it? They don't study music, right? But a beautiful painting, or like a figure, or like an emotion inside a figure, you can touch people with that. It's not so far away for people like the music field. I think it's a little bit more understood by the masses than music, like high level musicianship. That's what I mean.
Again, for me, I mean, I'm more auditory, so for me, music is more organic in terms of.
I mean, you still have to, like, in terms of, like, you have to be an expert to even understand it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there are some pieces that I can. It's a mastery of the instrument, for example, but to the untrained ear, sound like someone is testing the instrument rather than anything else. No, I can see that. But to me, it's again part of this culture that you have to, again, like everything. I never, every time that I talk with you about your paintings, I never saw you take affront to anything that I said. Doesn't matter how much I don't have the same vision. Doesn't matter how. I mean, I told you at some point we were talking about between two paintings. I said I like this one better than this one. I hear so many people. You cannot like everything the same way. I don't know what happened to the preservation of taste. And I'm not talking about tastemakers, because again, we're talking Minds Against Dogma, right? So, but I'm talking about the personal relationship with a work of art. That is not the relationship of that the artist intended. Is the relationship of whoever is looking at that painting. And some of your work, again, is the level of detail, and I know you spend I don't know how many hours with like this is almost finished Venus, right?
Mhm.
How many hours? Because I've seen it in like
I didn't.
stages.
I stopped counting, but it's 5 months by now. You know, many hours, many hours.
Many
You know?
many hours.
And
yeah.
obviously, I'm not painting all day long, but it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours for each painting. And also, thanks for saying that, because most of the time, when you mention all these guys like Leonardo and all these people, right? They were technically like brilliant, like as good as it gets, right? So when great technique, craftsmanship, just like an instrument, meets emotion and character and style and ideas, then you have this magic happening. But if you don't have the toolbox, if you don't have the tech, if you don't study the technique and practice for thousands of hours, tens of thousands of hours you have to practice, right? The technical side of music and art. But that's when talent meets craftsmanship. And when these two come together, it's magic, you know? Then you can really express limitless what's in here and in here. And like it just flows. But if you don't have the craft, if you don't have the tools, you can't do it. It's the same on an instrument. But the big difference is if I want to paint a realistic figure, a really beautiful, detailed figure, in the end, I have a figure and people can relate to it. But on an instrument, if something is super fast or like very complicated, most people cannot relate to it. And I think so many world-class musicians have to struggle with that. They only play for other musicians. And that's what I love so much about art, because you wouldn't believe how many people want to see these paintings. Also, like sometimes TikTok kids, and that's the greatest honor for me. Like oh my God, you know, they make these videos on TikTok, and then they're interested in art, and like, wow, I see this, and like this really touches me. This is really interesting. That makes me so happy.
Yeah, that's a great thing, and it's
to touch someone in a positive way, you know.
And in a way, it's also preserving something so sacred in a sense, and so complicated to do, like art in this way.
Yeah.
Preserving that by reaching the new generation on TikTok and other mediums like this. So that's an amazing thing to achieve. And since you were talking about the craftsmanship earlier, that's another thing. One of my frustration with the creative quote unquote bunch that I addressed also in the I'm not going to go on the same rant that I did on the podcast about Da Vinci, but this idea that creativity is sort of like art is separated from science and from other things, and creativity is it abandoned science, and it's only only artists are creative and all that. And we had many discussions about how you look at science and how science actually, I mean, you can't have craftsmanship when it comes to anything that you paint without science, the science behind it. You said like you were studying, I don't know how many fish to paint a fish. I don't know how many pictures to paint to get all the angles. And that's, again, that's geometry and that's science. The same thing with the music and all that. And even more so when you come to the understanding of the world, because I mean, it's one thing, the technical side, that's not necessarily the most creative part of science, but it's also the view of the world. And many artists, that's the other thing that I don't understand with this vision nowadays, because many artists, and the most creative ones, you mentioned Salvador Dali. Salvador Dali was fascinated by psychology. I mean, I when I was in Vienna last time, it was at the Belvedere Museum. They had this exhibition with his communication with Freud, and the letter that he would send to Freud, and all the articles that they would publish in magazines. So it was a fascination with some parts that now we consider scientific. It's about understanding the human mind, and that is creative. Doesn't matter how you know again to the untrained eye would sound like.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we talked about, and one of the things that I know you incorporate in your painting, and you never saw that divorce between art and science, is the view of the world, right?
Yeah.
And nature.
Yeah. You rediscover the beauty in everything. Like you said, for many people, especially these days, we live in this setup matrix. And people are like, oh, I have to wake up, I have to do this, and oh, how much money do I have? Oh, how much, how much does this guy have? Oh, I want a better car. It's like this matrix, right? But when you really when you really study a flower or a rose, you have to look so close, and you rediscover the beauty in everything, in life, in just being here, this moment with you right now, breathing, the color of the sky, how it changes towards the horizon. All that is in art. It's amazing. It makes you rediscover life. It's beautiful. It's a great process, And then you combine that, or at least I try to do that, with something surrealistic, something that's not there. It's hard to paint something realistic, only realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But I love when realism meets surrealism. When both are kind of like this. If something looks real in an unreal way.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I'm going for.
That's the magic.
It's kind of what I'm trying to do, what I'm striving to do.
So let's get to.
But I just wanted to add, like you said this so nice earlier, beautiful earlier, that there's always the craft side. And no matter how talented you are, if you're not willing to invest into the craft side, into virtue, I was always drawn to virtuosity. I remember seeing Buddy Rich play, the drummer, a very famous drummer, historic drummer, as a kid. And it was so breathtaking. It was like unreal that somebody can play like that. And I was so drawn to that elegance, to that flaw, to that flow, and to that flawlessness, to that perfection. And it's the same in art, like Da Vinci paints like that. It's just so flawless and so beautiful. And I was always very drawn to that. And I believe without the craft part, without the technical part, without the technical aspect, you will never be able to execute your true artistic vision. So they both come together, and then the magic eventually happens. So I just wanted to add that.
Human beings, when it comes to whether it's art, whether it's science, whether it's anything, they're not unilaterally designed, So every artistic venue, every scientific venue, everything has a multitude of elements that comes together. You have, again, you were talking about surrealism. If I'm allowed to make a parallel with the science, because again, people think that science is something that you take this class and then you do this and then you calculate whatever. No, that's not the magic necessarily in science. Although you can do that, and for a very long time it was magical that you're able to do that. But there's always this reality, as you were talking earlier about, and then there's the imagination. Like when you talk about cosmology and when you talk about quantum physics, for example, those two realms you can't go and measure what you do. And as human beings, the way we look at the world is using our imagination, making predictions, having a vision, that's not there. So I'm always fascinated by people who don't see that as much as I'm clinically fascinated by people who don't see that. And I'm also fascinated in a much positive way by the people who see these many dimensions of whatever you talk about, whether it's art, whether it's nature, whether it's science, whether it's a human being, a human mind, and so on. And talking about many dimensions, and I want to come back to something that you said earlier when you were talking about, okay, you have the craftsmanship that's technical, and it's a lot of work to get to that point, and it's always ongoing because you have to keep yourself, like, there's new techniques for
You have to maintain your craft. You have to hone your craft every single day.
And on top of that, there's the talent. And you marry these two things together, and you also have the soul, and the mind and the soul. So I want to come back to this part, because now it's the time to ask that question.
That's so. Let me. Sorry to just. I want to add something. You just said something so interesting, because when I was younger, like I loved reading all the books about the greats, and there's one thing they all have in common. That's like they were obsessed with their craft from early age on, and they did their own thing. This I read Michelangelo's book, the sculptor and painter Michelangelo. I read his book when I was very young. I think it was like 1,200 pages. I couldn't stop reading it. That's how interesting the book was. And rumor has it that he worked 18 hours a day. Like there was one chapter like where it said like he literally locked himself up for 3 weeks and painted a torso from every possible, or drew. He was not painting it, drawing. They were like sketching everything back then.
Yeah, sketching before taking a
and
block of
from
stone.
Every angle for 3 weeks. He just drew this thing every possible angle. And how they practiced with the candle, they had like a candle, and then they would with a sheet practicing like wrinkles to paint wrinkles, and they would move the candle and then do it from this side and then do it from this side. So like it was excessive practice, and craftsmanship was always part of these mega giant artists, who changed it all, who changed their field. They all had that in common. There was all of these guys, Raphael, all these guys were so dedicated because I think they had such a strong vision of what they actually wanted to do. They knew that they have to put in the work to make this real, to make this come to life. So did the great composers. Look at Mozart. The guy died, 35 years old, 36 years old, right? And he wrote like 900 compositions or something like that he wrote down.
Allegedly, because there's a
yeah. I'm not getting into like classical music now, but I'm just saying, like think about that output of work at such a young age, and such complex, long works, operas. Like it's just pouring out. Like it never stops. It never stops. So that dedication, they all have that in common. All these guys.
So what about AI? And what about art done with AI? Because you have the craftsmanship, because you can study whatever. You have the, again, talent. It's in the eye of the beholder, depending on what do you mean by talent, but you miss the soul and the mind. I mean, the mind can still be the mind of the person who is giving the instructions to the AI to do whatever, but that's not the soul for sure. So also the inspiration of the painting right behind you.
Oh, AI self.
Yeah. Exactly. But tell me, how do you see, because that's one of the biggest questions nowadays with everything that happens, also in music, but also in art and painting.
It's a great question, and it's probably a complex answer because it's always how you use it. Are you just lately, like the other day, I saw some guy on Instagram sitting in some Lamborghini. I'm having this AI channel, and like it automatically uploads all these AI songs and AI rap songs on Spotify. I'm making money around the clock with something that doesn't even exist. Sad, to That's what I meant, you know, like how do you think that these stupid random songs that sound like everything else, you know?
In this podcast, we can say that, yes.
Yeah, of course, you know, say it. It's awful. It's awful. Today's mainstream music is awful. It's awful. And people like that, if you use AI like that way, it's just, come on. But maybe you use it as a new tool. Maybe AI shows you a river in a different color that you've never seen before, and that turns into the next amazing painting for inspiration for a great song. So if we see it as our friend and companion, again, it's never going to go away. I think it's going to be all overpowering in 5 years from now. It already starting to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it always depends on how you use it and in what way you use it.
So do you think, let me ask it this way, because let's start with the music first. And again, when we talk about music, I always remember when we were living in Switzerland, we were flying to London to see concerts on Wembley from Geneva. And we found this small shop in Notting Hill that sold those things that you can put, they look like a I don't know, a banner that you can put on top of the door. And mine was very easy. It's not that I'm getting old, it's that your music sucks. That was the banner that we would be having on top of our doors when we were living in Switzerland. That was many years ago already. So that was 15 years ago.
And look, we don't want to be judgmental in general, and also not here right now, like in general. We never, but there might be something. I might play a great piece of music for you that you simply don't like, and that's perfectly fine. But then, of course, there's because our audience, they might think like we're not judging, you know. But some stuff is just, if I do this for 7 hours and have somebody scream over that, literally, or like make noises, you know, what is that?
I mean, I'm sure there are people, again, I'm sure there are people who enjoy that for whatever reason.
Many.
So, but again, just how they enjoy that, and they might not like a jazz piece or like a beat or like whatever thing that I like.
Yeah,
I can say the same thing about their stuff.
It is completely subjective, and it's the oldest discussion ever.
Which apparently we're not allowed to have anymore.
Oh, you should have it. You should have it. You know, and we already hit rock bottom. How much lower can we go from here? You know. So,
in terms of music, do you think? Because we had this discussion before, but I want to do it for the audience. Do you think that actually the artists that are now composing, and again, not the artists, the songs that are now composed just with AI, after a while, are gonna be sold or like appreciated the same way as the ones by the artists?
Again, in many ways, they already are.
So how long until we're not going to have musicians anymore?
Oh, I think we are, in a way, we're already there. It's like, you know, how many studios are left here in LA? I remember a time like there were so many studios most of them are gone. They had to close.
Yeah, because now everyone
it's all programmed. It's all on a computer.
Studio, exactly.
Yeah, it's all samples on a computer. And if your question is if AI will ever replace this, the heart, the soul,
of course, that was another question.
True beauty, I think it can, but many people don't even recognize that anymore. So for many people, it's always a point of view, right? It's a brilliant topic you bring up here. It's very complex to talk about that because many people don't recognize that beauty and that honesty and truth in a piece of music anymore. So for them, they couldn't care less. You know, they're busy with their life, and then they come home or they go in some club and they just hear 4 hours of like one tempo and like the same line over and over, like with some strings, and then it's like a 4-year-old kid can do that, and they just don't care. They have other problems, which is fine, you know.
for me, I did this test with songs that I didn't know that they were made by AI. And again, the same thing is like I either like it or I don't. And I did like songs that were just made by AI without knowing. The problem for me was, because again, the song was a song, right? The problem for me was these are entities that I cannot see in concert. And whether it's in concert like in our rooftop or in a bar in LA, or whether it's on a stadium somewhere, to me, as like I miss that element. And I know bands, and some of my favorite bands that are not playing in touring and playing in concerts anymore.
Yeah.
Which is sad, but when you talk about AI, that's one of the things that I think I would miss the most.
Yes, yes. I would like to add something here. When I first came to LA, I had the great pleasure of studying with a very, very famous drum teacher. And he was more of like a guru. He was very like spiritual in a way. He was extremely smart. And it was all about the approach, the approach in the instrument, but respecting the laws of nature. Letting the drumstick do the work for you. It was all about the laws of nature. He was like, you would have liked him. He was a very interesting character, very eccentric and very different. I like people like that. And he always said, what's the difference if you don't know the difference? And that sums it up.
Exactly.
What's the difference if you don't know the difference? For some people know the difference between a Mozart symphony and some 4-year-old kid pulling a loop on a laptop and into some software and making a loop out of this. The computer's doing everything. And other people say it's just music. Both is just music. Everybody's touched by it in a different way. You just said like the painting touches you in a different way. You see your thing. But what's the difference if you don't know the difference? So most young people are not exposed anymore, in America especially. There's no more music in education now. They cancel all the music programs. They cancel all the art, most of the art programs in the regular high schools in America. So young people don't even get exposed to it anymore. So they simply don't know the difference anymore. And I think the platforms, that brings us back to the platforms, they welcome that. They want that. Because all they want people to get addicted, to come back and have this illusion all the time that something amazing is going to happen on this platform now. All you need to do is keep posting and get attention and get more and more crazy with like the way of attention you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's what these platforms want. They're just exploiting human nature, I think. And that has a lot to do with AI too, because these platforms push AI like crazy.
Of course, because again, an AI would
because
help
now
whatever.
You can be a composer. Think about that. You have no idea about music, but now with AI, you make your own songs. You say 2 words.
I mean, given how big a consumer I am, I might look into that, because I know so much music that like I might find with AI, I might find my way in.
And now you might say, you some 18-year-old, you know what, school sucks. I don't even know what I really want to do. And like, I might as well try uploading songs now. Maybe people really like my AI songs. So again, it brings him back to the platform. Over and over and over again, you come back to that. And I read somewhere that half of the Facebook board members are actually casino psychologists. They used to work in Las Vegas back in the day, like trying to get people to put their last $100 bill in the slot machine. Yes. And now it's the same dopamine rush that they want people to get from social media. And some kid might say, you know what, I tried, why not? I don't want to learn an instrument. I just do this AI thing, and maybe people really like my music. Maybe I'm getting some hits, and maybe I get paid for doing that. Millions of people think like that.
Yeah, and why shouldn't they?
We have the technology, right? The platform is there, and so it's just like this ever-growing universe of this false reality. There's the real world, and then there's this digital world that's just an illusion in a way. for the most part.
So how about the AI in fine arts? Because that's a little bit, we were talking about that, and I mentioned, like, what if you have a 3D printer? But that's still a difference in between.
Again, in what way do you approach it? Because you take a photo of this glass with your phone and you put it into like some even simple AI software, and it turns it into something crazy. And now you might say, okay, this is a piece of art. This is an artwork, and I make an NFT and I sell this. This is like a painting. This is a digital NFT painting. If you use it like that, it's exactly the same thing like what we just talked about with music. But a guy like Dali, I think, I read everything about him, and I do you know the story with the spoon? He would stay up so long until and then he fell asleep, and he dropped the spoon, and the second the spoon hit the floor, he saw something. He would stay on a rock for like 2 hours, and then he would see something inside the rock. So he would probably use AI in a way like, I'm doing something really crazy with this glass, and then I combine it with a grand vision of a new piece of art. So he kind of used that already, like you. Maybe some people did psychedelics or whatever, like Jimi Hendrix, like he was doing psychedelics. So people have all kinds of tools. Everybody has different tools for creativity, right? Like
but I was thinking more in terms of when the AI is taking over.
Yeah.
Because with music, it's.
Oh, so you mean like really AI is like taking over, and like I just shamelessly make a photo of this glass, and just make an NFT and say this is a piece of art, and
I'm talking more as we talked about, songs. In terms, you can have songs made by AI and not know the difference. With the fine art, there's still a little bit of a difference there, because even with 3D printers, you're not there yet, right? But how long until we're gonna be there and have this done by the AI and a 3D printer?
Do you mean like painting style? It's already happening. What do you mean with 3D printer?
For example, like an AI can make an image of this, but it cannot make this without a 3D printer. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Well, many people already, as I said, that you can print it out, obviously, and then they sell that too. So it's already happening. And I talked to a lady last year somewhere in Hollywood in a club. And she just said, artists shouldn't. That's the new artist. Like, you don't have to draw anymore. You don't have to paint anymore. It's like it's only what you see in the end. So
it's the end product.
It's a little bit like the photo camera, right? Back in the day, you needed an artist. Like the rich families back in the day, they all wanted family portraits and to remember their kids and their children, so they had to hire good artists and get their portraits done. But then the photo camera came, so like boom. So, and now AI is here, which can do all the creative part too, and it's endless. So I think it will come down like the same thing. Some people will always appreciate, oh, this guy did this, and I really like him for that, and I like it. And if that's the case, that's fine. But if it's not the case, it's fine too, because it will never go away.
So the human made art is going to be the rare one that we call vintage and a rarity when you find a real artist. How about you? Are you using AI in your?
I look at thousands of pictures all the time, and sometimes like the most creative time is right after waking up. And you might have a great idea for something, but something's missing, and then you let it just settle, and you make a note so you don't forget it. And then I always look at random websites and photos, and I make photos of all kinds of stuff too that inspire me in a way. And then you might combine different images. That's what all painters do. It's super exciting, I think. So you see an angel in an old Rene. You see an angel this is from 500 years ago. It's behind the camera. Sorry, guys.
We'll put it on top of the.
We'll put it in. Yeah. So this is the Da Vinci phase, and the background is from some digital website. These pink clouds. So I was like, how cool would it be if this Da Vinci figure floats out of these? So you combine stuff, and you just do your own thing with it in the end, and you combine many different ideas, and then hopefully it turns into one good composition. It's like cooking. You have different ingredients, and hopefully the final dish is good. You like it.
One art that I'm staying clear of for the good of everyone involved. That's cooking.
You know, like what I would like to add is like, try to. Many people are cynical about what's happening now because so many things are so devalued. But again, I think there's still plenty of people that love the real thing, that appreciate the real thing, and are drawn to it too. And that human element, in the end, we're still people, right? Like me and you, we talk here, we have a good conversation, and I think that will never go away. Maybe that will go away too. We have robots already coming. Like that's a whole other topic. We can do another podcast about that, right? The humanoid revolution, and people are like buying like cuddle, like these little cuddle things. Do you see that? Because they don't want to be alone anymore. So many people are so lonely now. We also connected. At the same time, so many people are so lonely that they have to order these things that cuddle them. Like it's all over YouTube now. I see these commercials all the time. So that's bizarre too, in a way, that we're all so connected and yet so more separated than ever before. I want to play a game with you.
Yeah. And I did not tell Bernard that I'm going to do this, so it's a surprise. You might end up hating me or worse, but I did ask today. So I did ask 3 different AIs today to describe your work. Want to hear what they said? I have 3 levels of where I'm going with this, and we're gonna play with this for a while. So, sum up in a nutshell. This is ChatGPT. I'm gonna give the name of the AI because there are a bunch of them. Bernard Galane's art is best described as surreal realism, a fusion where classical technique meets ethereal symbolism. His visual language invites viewers into emotionally charged, dreamlike worlds where myths, introspection, and spirituality intertwine. Whether depicting angels, fractured hearts, life machines, or surreal beings, his works challenge you to pause, reflect, and feel. That's what ChatGPT said about you. Now, what's interesting, and I'm putting you on the spot now, whether you like it or not. I asked ChatGPT because when I'm working with AI, I'm working in behavioral science and profiling, and the app that we're gonna soon hopefully launch. The app that I'm working on is an app that provides different modalities, hypnotherapy and NLP and all of this other stuff interactively using the AI techniques, and done again with all the ethical guardrailings and fail-safes and all that involved. So it is trained to do that. It's not like asking, using ChatGPT to be your therapist, because we know how that goes. But ChatGPT and a couple of other AIs themselves are good at profiling in terms of like general profiling, So this is what it said about you. It said a lot about you. Mm-hmm. Number 1, in terms of behavioral profiling, deeply reflective and introspective. Evidence. His painting consistently explore inner landscapes, dreams, emotions, spirituality, life, and death. Behavioral traits. Likely spend significant time in contemplation or solitude. 6 meaning in internal experiences and the subconscious mind. Uses art as a therapeutic, almost meditative process. 2, spirituality, curious, possibly mystical. Evidence. Recurring themes. So this is just by looking at your painting. So I did not tell anything to the ChatGPT about you. Evidence. Recurring themes include guardian spirits, angels, metaphysical machines, and godlike imagery. God on drugs, angel of death, indicating an interest in divine higher consciousness. Behavioral traits, likely drawn to altered states of awareness, spiritual philosophies, or dream analysis, may engage with non-mainstream spiritual traditions, Jungian psychology, mysticism, sacred geometry, comfortable with ambiguity and non-binary thinking. 3. Emotionally expressive but indirectly, evidence. Emotional themes like desperate circus lion or unconditional acceptance. This is the behavioral analysis of an AI looking at your paintings. Suggests deep feeling expressed metaphorically rather than literally. Behavioral traits. Uses visual allegory to process personal or collective emotion. May be sensitive to emotional undercurrents but prefers symbolic communication over verbal self-disclosure. Possibly introverted, observant, and highly emphatic. 4. Philosophical, and I'm getting there, there are not that many, so there are only 5. Philosophical and concept-driven. Evidence. Works are idea-heavy, often centered around complex or paradoxical topics like identity, creation, life cycles, and artificial constructs, the life machine. Behavioral traits. Enjoys abstract thinking and playing with big ideas. Likely a voracious reader or thinker, perhaps with a fascination for metaphysics or existential philosophy. Strong desire to provoke thought, disrupt assumptions through visual storytelling. And 5, rebellious and subversive. Evidence. Titles like God on Drugs or Nature's Germans suggest a willingness to challenge norms, whether spiritual, scientific, or cultural. Behavioral traits. Nonconformist in worldview and creative practice, may distrust rigid systems or authority figures. Feels most alive when expressing truths that feels dangerous, hidden, or sacred. I lied. There's 6. 6. Disciplined and technically grounded. His classical painting technique shows patience, structure, and mastery. Behavioral traits. Likely maintains a steady discipline studio practice, values craftsmanship and visual clarity as tools for communicating complex ideas, balances intuitive creativity with technical control, suggesting emotional regulation and perseverance. And the personality archetypes he resonates with. The alchemist transforms inner chaos into visual goals through introspective ritual. The seer observes beyond surface reality, channels deeper truths into symbolic form. The trickster sage uses irony and paradox to challenge norms while guiding toward insight. Likely beliefs and worldview. Reality is layered. What we see is only a fragment of what it is. Art is a tool for soul work, transformation, and healing. Truth often lies in contradiction. Beauty and darkness coexist. Emotions are valid, complex, and best expressed symbolically. And finally, creative freedom is sacred, especially when used to explore uncomfortable truths. Now, I know many of these things, because again, this is general behavior profiling, as I say, like if you give that to all the artists, many of them are gonna recognize themselves in most of these traits. So it's like when you go to a medium, a psychic medium, and they say general stuff, and of course they're talking about you.
Yeah.
So many of these things can be general for many artists, but especially towards the end, to the personality archetype and the more like social constructs and likely beliefs. How would you rate AI's analysis of you?
Pretty accurate in many ways.
Yeah. So this is something, to me, this was very interesting, and I have another one last game to play with you with AI, but to me this was very interesting because today when I was thinking about doing this podcast with you, most of it was focused on, again, Minds Against Dogma in terms of history of art and you, and also where we're going to go in terms of the artist and AI. But this is basically AI, the consumer, as I call it, the appreciator. So the fact that the AI, by quote unquote, looking at your paintings and analyzing the titles of some of them, came with this analysis of the artist. I was so surprised, and I wanted to
thanks for doing that. It's really interesting.
And then I have one more thing that I asked the AI to, and I asked 3 AIs. The first one was ChatGPT, and I said, describe to me and give me an image for the Bernard Galane painting that's not yet painted. And I mean, with your permission, we're going to put it on the podcast, but I'm going to show you what it came up with. The first AI. So the first one was ChatGPT. So the Bernard Galane painting painted by ChatGPT.
Wow. Wow.
I know, right?
Let me see.
Look at the detail here, look at the small figure here, and all the.
I like everything except the eyes. It's great, actually.
Yeah,
I really
and
like
I
it. You have to
also-
send me those, okay?
I will. So this type of like the small figure here at the bottom, in my head was like, that's so you, because every time when we look at
Where?
see this man here, to me this small detail added here, it was that's
Wow.
so you, because every time we look at one of your paintings, at some point it's like, but did you see? And there's something in the corner, you know, that doesn't catch necessarily the eye. Now I ask the same question. It's so interesting.
But it's really cool. You got to send me those.
I ask the same question to another one that I'm using it more for the coding side, so it's much better than ChatGPT in the coding part. So I wanted to see if it's an AI that's more technical, what it's going to do. So I asked Claude AI, and it told me, it's very interesting what it said. I was laughing out loud with this AI. I said, can you describe to me the Bernard Galane painting yet to be painted and give me an image? This is what I said. I can't create an actual image for you, but I can certainly describe what a yet to be painted Bernard Galane work might look like based on his artistic style and themes. Here's a conceptual description of the image. The Dreamer Quantum Gateway is the title, and it starts with all on canvas. The painting world features a central figure in a meditative, so it describes the painting. I'm not gonna, I mean, I can put it on the screen when we do that. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but it's the color, the brushwork. I'd recommend checking out his website. It even did that. What's in the background? There's a Renaissance figure. And then I doubled down because I know that Claude AI can generate images. So I was like, why can't you create an image? And it told me something very interesting. It said, you're absolutely right to question that. I actually can create images. I was being unnecessarily cautious. It didn't want to plagiarize your work. I was so shocked by this. I was shocked by these replies. You're absolutely right to question that. I can create images. I was being unnecessarily cautious.
Interesting.
That was so interesting to me. Let me create a visual interpretation of what a yet to be painting it is. And it does describe it in the Dreamer's Quantum Gateway. That's the name for the painting. It says surrealistic composition, spiritual themes, musical integration, guardian spirits, Renaissance. So the description sounds amazing and very detailed and with all the elements. Now, when it created an image, and actually it's a GIF because it's moving. I just took a screenshot so you won't see it, but on the screen it's gonna be, these elements are actually moving, so it's like a video. It came up with this, which doesn't really look much.
Wow.
It's so basic but again, the description sounded amazing. The end product was like, no, this is not the Bernard Galane yet to be painting. The other one, yes. And finally it was the Gemini bit, and so this is the one. Oops. This is actually amazing. I didn't realize this when I first looked at it, because I looked at the colors. I was like, no, this is not Bernard. But now when I look at it with the upside down water and the bubbles, this looks exactly like the one that we talked about last time. The one with the planets and the waterfall. And again, I did not put any, and that's not a painting that's on any website.
Wow. Yeah, interesting.
So it's almost predicting that you're going to paint, which is very fascinating. I mean, again, when you look at it, it doesn't necessarily look like one of your pieces. But now when I look at the the water motif and the bubbles, that's right there in front of me.
That's a different style. Is it completely?
The style is different, but again, the elements.
But the first one was interesting. The first one you showed me, that's really interesting.
Yeah, that's the
seminar.
So
yeah, interesting. Like AI, and I think there's so many. There's going to be so many avenues of how we're going to use this. Everybody's going to use it in a different way, so it's going to be interesting. Let's always be positive and like use what we have for the best outcome.
Yes, and I mean there have been moments in history when you think about art, when you would expect, I mean, video killed the radio star and things like that, but I mean it didn't kill the music necessarily. Like music videos did not replace songs on whatever other media. Photography did not replace
you're
painting.
Right. You're right, Sinziana. What it did, it just technology, the streaming. There will always be great musicians. There will always be great artists. People are going to do. They will do anything just to express. But the only thing that really dies, like the underlying ecosystem, how we used to monetize it, how great musicians and great composers and great artists used to make a living. That's just completely different. It got all turned upside down.
And the other thing that's different is
because of technology. Sorry to interrupt, but like the music, like you just said, there will always be great music. There will always be great musicians. There will always be great artists. They will never ever go away as long as there are people. It will never go away.
What I think is also changing, and this comes back to another point that you made earlier, and I was trying to remember to bring the discussion back to that, was when you said the difference in between, and again, this goes to the attention span, and I'm not going to get now into what does to the brain and to the humans in general, but what that does to the art and the way we appreciate art and the way we make art. Because it's one thing, as you said, to spend hours upon hours upon hours studying and doing the same thing, and like it's repetitive. And it's another thing, like you do that and then you have something that I mean, you have people that the attention span is like 2 seconds,
especially
like
now,
a few seconds,
especially now. And again, that in many ways a very vicious matrix that's set up to like exploit most people, because that's what it really is. Is set up that way because think about it, the smarter and the more educated people are, the more gonna be rebellious against the status quo, whatever they get like told is the right thing to do in life, right? So I've been thinking about that a lot. Look at what most people eat, the nutrition, and like they're like it almost seems like someone wants people to get sick as early as possible, because then the whole pharma industry makes so many billions and billions and billions of dollars off all that. And it's the same thing with this, like one of the main reasons I believe why so many people are like in therapy now, they need help and they are unhappy, is because they simply cannot like stick to a goal or a vision or a task long enough anymore to make it become reality and that fulfilling, beautiful part in their life. And if you constantly distracted by something, constantly, you can never really like excel in something. And think about like what social media shows the mainstream what a good life is. You're in some beach, some guy on a beach, and oh, look at my life. I do nothing all day. I'm just on the beach, and I'm eating and drinking all day long, and I'm swimming a little bit, and I do whatever. I'm always on vacation. Look how great my life is.
It's the second circle of Inferno.
But you know what the funny thing is, and it's just my humble opinion, what I believe. I believe that we as human beings are actually made. We all have talents. We are all special in our own way, and we all beautiful in our own way. And these talents will never like grow and like come to something if you don't hone like the craft behind whatever you want to do. That's just the most normal thing in life. And I believe there's nothing more rewarding than getting great at something. I think that's the most beautiful thing a human being can go through. Like 20 Ferraris and 15 houses in the hills, like will never ever make up that that feeling of like that you really like you did something on your own and you put in the blood, sweat, and tears, and it became reality, and it's beautiful and it's great and it's outstanding. It's a wonderful thing, I think. And like you said, I wish more people like would believe in their dreams a little longer, you know, and not give up so early, and hang in there and like have that vision. I always try to have a vision, and then on a bad day, I still keep going. I still keep going because I know what I want. I know what I want in the end. And like you said, like mastering something is endless repetition. It's like you don't master something overnight. It's tricky. Otherwise, everybody would be like Leonardo da Vinci, right?
And what the guy did for understanding how stuff work is like
yeah, and it's this like this combination of not giving up. I hope I can motivate some people who watch this not to. I think I'm a pretty good motivator too, and I like to uplift other people. It's a combination of having a vision, of knowing what you want, knowing what you want to be. Hopefully, it's really positive, and then simply like executing the steps to make all that a reality, day after day, a little bit, like chipping it off a little bit every single day. And if you don't give up, most likely will happen. It will become reality. You can be really good at something, whatever it is you do. And then be self-critical too. I learned over the years, I'm trying to not be critical of others. I'm just critical of one guy, this guy here. I'm very, very critical of myself. But that helps me grow. And I want to get better. I always want to get better and better and better. Every single day, I want to put in that work. And not forget the fun of life too. You know, don't get me wrong. Like you should have fun, but there's this magic behind sticking to something. And like, isn't everything like that in life? Relationships, friendships. Not all friendships and relationships are always great, right? Something might come up, but you know, like if you really like work it out, you know, if it's a good thing, you stick to it. And then in the end, you get out stronger and better. And it's like that with everything, I believe.
There's a very interesting point here. Now I'm the one profiling you. That goes against the preconception that if you're an artist that can go through the pits of despair and turn your soul upside down and go through the darkest, more shadowy like moments.
Yes.
You have to be like that all the time, and that's you just prove that preconception wrong by being uplifting and motivating people and having this type of positive attitude when you talk to people and try to get them.
And let me ask you, you say so many awesome things. I really, by the way, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you. It's great. You have a great podcast, and it's an honor to be on it. You know, it's great. You just said something so interesting. You talked about these cliches of the darkness that some artists have to go through. Of course, it's true, right? You read biographies. Many creative people went through very dark phases. But how do you think someone feels who like always had a certain dream or like wanted to be, like, say, for example, an artist or a musician or whatever, or an actor or a director or whatever, any creative field, and people were like dreaming about doing this, and then it gets tough and they give up, and then they end up in something they don't even like, and they notice slowly, like, wow, like what would have happened if I would have hung in there a little longer? Did I really give it all I got? Did I really like try my very best to make it all real? And then you know how it is, then you slip into something, you don't enjoy that, and something else, and then I think that's the real
spiraling, yes.
that's the real darkness for me. So I gladly I still play I still practice every day. I still paint as much as I can. I'm working out every day. I'm staying fit. It's very intense, what I put myself through every day. It's not easy, but I love it. I love it so much, and I think I'm a little obsessed with it. I think I'm obsessed with it. Yeah, and it's so fulfilling. And by now, it was not always like that, obviously, but now I have such a creative freedom in my life. And I'm well aware that very few people have that. It's a long road to get there. I've been doing it all my life. But to have that freedom, and not getting a commission for some commercialized bullshit thing over and over for someone else, but really have that personal creative freedom that you can do your thing and you can put on canvas or on tape what you really want to execute. It's amazing. I'm so grateful. Every night I go to bed with gratitude, and I wake up with gratitude every single day.
Now let me ask you, before we close, and I want you to talk a little bit at the end about what you have going on right now in terms of exhibitions and all that. But before that, let me ask you more with the last global question.
Yeah.
Quo vadis in terms of art in, let's say, 10 years? Where are we going? How do you see, because you've seen all these transformations, you talked about it, it was the streaming thing with the music, then it was the pandemic, and then it was the AI. So how do you see where we're going in 10 years, 10, 20, 30?
I believe there will be even much more bullshit out there than it already is now. I believe there will even be more sensationalists out there. Oh, look at me, I cut off my finger and I film it, and now everybody has to watch it, and I make it art, do you know what I mean with sensationalist? It's just cheap attention, cheap, trashy, this typical these days. But I believe at the same time, there will always be this one thing. You look at it, you hear it, you see it, it hits you right in the heart. It's beautiful, it's honest, it's pure, it gives you goosebumps. You don't know where it comes from, but it's magic, and it feels good and it feels right. And it will always be like that. There will always be people like that who create stuff that hits you right in the heart. And that gives you that feeling. No matter how crazy everything gets with technology, and it will get much crazier. We probably all going to be wearing glasses. We see it all the time. It's not enough on our phones anymore. We have to see it all the time. But that real thing, that real beauty, true beauty, you know what I mean? What is beauty? What is something truly beautiful? Oh, it's so rare. But when you see it, you know what it is, because it hits you right in the heart. It's real. You almost cannot describe it. It's honest, it's pure, it's real. And I think that will never, ever go away for as long as people live.
I hope that I really hope that that's the case. This is, but again, humans are transforming and are transforming at a rate that is very fast. For example, to give you an example from the pandemic, one of the things that terrified me, and it's not really about art, but terrified me in terms of how humans are developing. So I was very lucky during the pandemic to be able to do the digital nomad thing, and I traveled a lot during the pandemic. I was in 5 countries in 1 year and a half or something. Because again, I'm not doing selfies, so wearing a mask meant nothing to me. It wasn't a problem. There were no tourists, so I could travel. It was very cheap to travel and very, very easy to go around, and with not a lot of preparation. So I was, for example, I think it was 2021, if I'm not mistaken, in Palma. It was the summer. There were not as many tourists, so it was you could see some amazing things without the craziness. And we were at some point, they have these caves there, and one of them is, I mean, there were a couple of islands, so I believe that that was in Palma de Mallorca, could have been Sardinia, but I think, anyway. So they have these caves, grottos. One of them was called the Neptune cave, and they had this amazing underground caves where there was almost like an underground lake where they had um, a small boat with a quartet playing classical music and candlelight as walking through the. You can imagine the sound in that cave. I mean, it was and it was everything. It was so organic, like the stalactites and the stalagmites, and the way the light, they put the light to make them come alive, and the smell of being in that cave, like it was a multi-sensorial experience.
Yeah.
And I was with my mother, and in front of us there was a young girl, teenage girl. I maybe 16, could have been anywhere between 12 and 16, really, with her father, and she was on her phone, and her father was trying to get her attention to look around. It was such a superb experience in so many levels, and she was arguing with him. What's the difference between being there and looking at the picture?
Okay.
And while I can say, like, being in a museum, because the museums were having this live streaming during the pandemic, and looking at the picture is one thing, but being in that 3D space where you have everything, like the temperature, the light, the
whole vibe,
the whole, everything, and say what's the difference between being there, as I told you, like that experience was mind blowing, and looking at a picture or a movie. It was, to me, that there was like I stopped in my tracks, and I was like, okay, let's take some distance, because I was afraid that I'm gonna try. I have to be careful with the microphone. I'm gonna try to explain what the difference is, and I did not want to ruin my experience. But so that generation, and that was like already during the pandemic, with the new generation, with like the kids, the little kids, the human experience is going to be very, very different.
You're so right. Yeah.
So this is what scares me.
Yeah, I watched a podcast from a psychologist, and he said that many, especially in the United States, it's interesting that this country is always leading many of the good things and many of the bad things too, unfortunately. That many young people basically have a chronic avoidant personality disorder. They cannot really connect anymore on a deep level. Everything must be superficial, and they can't be vulnerable anymore with other people. There's always this wall, and like it's very scary. And if you look at the birth rate here in this country too, it shows, right?
Yeah.
Like it's very interesting. How different this young internet generation is. Let's see where it goes. I don't know. Maybe people are going to be half humanoid robots one day. Half human. I don't know.
Yeah, like go find an island somewhere for the last humans. Their last remains.
And maybe you're right. Maybe like the story from the cave, this beautiful cave, and this person says, "What's the difference?" I'm looking at a picture. Maybe many people are not even gonna recognize true beauty or like feel anything for it anymore.
And it's also
that would explain what we talked earlier about, like with the music, like, because for me it's almost unexplainable that somebody wants to be in a small room with people and listen to one tempo, like some non-mechanical sound, extremely loud, for 5 hours and just numb out. And there's no more emotion behind it. There's no more. It's just like almost like a machine, almost like a robot. It's like always the same. That I find that very interesting, because for me there was nothing greater than going to a concert and seeing an artist I really like, and then he come on stage. I have this relationship with them before from their music, right? and it's real and like goosebumps, right? I remember these. I still like going to concerts all the time, but so many young people don't go to concerts. They go to these clubbings and raves, and they just stand there with their group of friends, and they listen to the same loop for 5, 6 hours. And that I find that very interesting. That I don't really get it. I don't really get it.
That is again, it's changing our senses because we talked about taste, and taste is one thing. It's like
Absolutely,
right,
yeah,
it's like
that's different.
colors and
Yeah.
and dishes and meals and whatever. Like taste is one thing, but it's also the way this type of exposure changes our sensorial perception of the world, and by that transforms. I don't know how long it will take to actually transform our biology altogether, and in turn transform our brain and the way we think. So I think we came to a point in the very slow evolution of the, well, very small when you compare it to the scale of the universe, but by the standards, just taking the human life very slow otherwise in terms of biology, to a point in which we are going to see changes in the human perception and senses and all that.
Yeah, I agree.
And then you don't know what's the. I mean, that's the hardest.
Wouldn't you say? I'm just throwing this out. I'm like, what do I know? But like,
wouldn't that explain? It's a fact that more people than ever need help now, or are in therapy, and simply need help to get through life because certain human needs, I think, in our society are not fulfilled anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely a dissonance.
Wouldn't you say there's a certain DNA in human nature, like how if you go back thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, evolution? It's a whole other thing now we're getting into, and we are really like,
yeah, we're past.
I love talking to you. We could do another 5 hours, but I'm just saying, wouldn't that explain why so many people are so troubled and so isolated from their own core and from their own, that overstimulation you always need with something superficial, really quick this. But to conclude, because we could go on, and I love talking to you, we could go on for another 5 hours with all these interesting topics. I think it will always get down to be a good person, be genuine, be nice. And if you're lucky enough to like have a gift or a talent or like a skill or whatever you do, like you do your podcast, try to reach other people. Do it for the other person in a positive way, and try to hopefully be a motivation for other people or an inspiration to other people. And try to make the world a better place for everyone with whatever you do. And I think that will always be a good attitude for life in general.
And speaking about life in general, tell me in particular now, what's happening with your work, and where do you have it?
The whole bunch of works are in, they take so long to dry. Do you know that they take a year to really dry, and then you can seal them off, and then you can actually start exhibitions after 1 year? So I did quite a lot of, these days, many galleries have digital screens, which is good because you don't have to ship this monster like over 2 continents. It's very complicated to ship big, large paintings. So you just have it on a digital screen in a gallery for a month, and if someone is interested, they can get a print or like sometimes posters. We do posters too. So that I'm doing that quite often with digital like galleries, and I have a lot of cool paintings in Europe too. So in Europe, there's sometimes people show up and they want to buy the old ones. My early work, they're like, "Can I see some of your early work?" Last year, there was a family coming, and they were like staying for 3 hours. They were going through and they got 4. They took 4 paintings with them. So yeah, whatever comes along. So they rotate around random galleries all over the world. This one was in Berlin in a gallery. This one behind you. In Dubai too, I think. And this one I think was digitally in Paris for a month. So whatever comes along. There are going to be some interesting features. The next one's in Japan. I talk about art too. That's going to be next week, I think. And then I'm going to be in Europe, and hopefully we have a couple of really cool things I don't want to talk about. You know, there's one thing, right? I don't want to talk about it yet.
I was like, we're
because
not
we have
jinxing
a meeting coming up.
We're not jinxing that one.
Just to say, you know, my ultimate dream would be for my originals, for the really nice ones, to have them in Europe in the really nice museums or galleries. That's the greatest honor, I think. Especially in Europe, because there's so much tradition for art. So let's see.
And what about
you post?
You better. I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for all those things.
Thank you.
And what about on the music side?
On the music side, we're doing lots of clinics. We're going to be doing some drum clinics in Europe next month.
Where in Europe?
In Vienna and in Germany too. And then I come back to LA for 2 months. And I'm going to be recording a lot of music. I still do a lot of session work too in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not playing out live that much anymore, but I still record quite a lot. Like, you know, session work. Somebody just records an album or like a soundtrack for a video game or whatever. But, I like to do clinics, drum clinics. You know what that is? A clinic is like I go to university or like, and I play for young upcoming musicians, and they ask me all kinds of questions. And I really like to share my knowledge and like make friends that way and inspire young upcoming musicians to keep going and keep doing the thing, because they're going to carry on that torch into the future and hopefully keep it alive. So, okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I wish you the best of luck with everything that's going on.
Same for you.
And yes, and hopefully we get
Another episode.
to do another episode. Yeah, we'll be speaking about the evolution of art and madness that's happening right now with AI and all that. We'll have all the information. People can check out your website and your Instagram page and all this feature that you talked about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much once again, and see you next time.